Thank you for watching this Slay the Brother video. My name is Killtrap. My twin Soviet Green and I make videos about Magic the Gathering. I hope everyone's having a great day today. I've been having a blast playing this deck in Brawl. I've been very busy lately though, and I may be getting a new job, so my streaming schedule is probably going to change, which sucks because that's right after I set it up and started getting used to it. But we will be committed to streaming 3 days a week here at Slay the Brother. Maybe more once Nick gets back into it. But today I want to go over a standard Brawl deck based around Liliana of the Veil. I don't quite understand Planeswalkers as your commander that much, to be honest. And I know in Brawl it's different. It's not like, oh, the second you play this motherfucker, everybody's gonna hate it out, like in Commander. But there's not a lot of powerful Planeswalkers, in my opinion, that are worthy of being your commander. There's a handful, and you do see them in Brawl. And Liliana is definitely one of them, though. I mean, she's just a great resource to utilize to destroy your opponent's resources. If you're not familiar with her, her +1 makes each player discard a card, so that includes us. We may need to be a little careful with that. I've actually gotten too suicidal myself. Her -2 makes a target player sacrifice a creature, which is kind of nice to have that on a stick. And those are the two main things we're trying to actually double down on with our deck, though, is make them discard, destroy their creatures. Brawl kind of can be a removal-heavy format sometimes, and the more removal you have in your deck, I think the higher you're weighted in the queue. And if you have a Planeswalker as your commander, you're getting way up there in the queue. So the whole point of this deck, though, is just try to make them have as little in their hand as possible, make it as hard for them to play creatures, play their commander as possible, and maybe if we can even get Liliana up to +6, most of the time, they just scoop when they see that shit. No one wants to deal with that unless they've built an overwhelming field presence. We are not the mono black deck to build that kind of field presence. We do have some good stuff, but we only have I only put 16 creatures in this deck. Now, yeah, I could have made it a little more basher heavy, a little more creature friendly, but I kind of base this off of like the mono black decks we're seeing in standard. So to start off with our strategies, we have discard. I have Dreams of Steel and Oil, Duress, Hopeless Nightmare, and Ruthless Negotiations as our 1-mana discard cards. Now, Ruthless Negotiations and Hopeless Nightmare, they don't let us look in the opponent's hand like Dreams of Steel and Oil and Duress. So I was iffy about it at first, but Hopeless Nightmare sticks around. It lets us get some scry out of it if we need to. And Ruthless Negotiation kind of sticks around in our graveyard. We get to cast it again later on in the game, and we can draw a card if we need to. So yeah, that's nice. And it also exiles the card, which, as I've talked about in a previous video with my Kato deck, that is very important. Because especially in Brawl, yes, people have reanimation outlets. Sometimes your commander is a reanimation outlet. So the next, I'm moving on to the 2-drops. Don't have a lot in there. We only have 3 cards. Bandit's Talent. That's great, though, because it forces them to discard a non-land card unless they want to give up 2 primo lands. And if they give up 2 lands, they're going to be regretting that once we hate their commander out of the game. Deep Cavern Bat. I mean, the more I use them, the less I like them, but they let us look in their hand and snatch the card. So it is pretty cool. And Cruel Claw's Heist, the more I use this, the more I love it. Really, though, if you're running mono block or any kind of black deck that likes to make people discard or steal their cards, this is a go-to. And I don't know what they were thinking about the gift. Gift a card, that's I think I know what they were thinking because, hey, if someone has nothing in their hand, give them something. There's a chance you can steal it. That's cool. But, this is just gives us more options. You always want to gift the card and steal the card. And then a late game drop is Aklo. I can never pronounce this guy's name. The Deepest Betrayal. This cool bat demon god. Even though he's not a demon, I thought he was. But this cool bat god. They have flying, lifelink. Whenever they attack, each opponent discards a card. If they can't, you draw a card. Whenever an opponent discards a land, we get to create a 1/1 black creature token with flying. Whenever this creature dies, it comes back as a land that we can transform for 3 mana, 4 technically including the land, and only if a player has 1 or fewer cards in their hand, only as a sorcery. And sometimes we can get that way, though, especially if we're nailing them down with Liliana. So then I want to focus on removal. As you can see, this whole row is removal. I kind of feel like maybe I should have added another board wiper too, because when they go wide, that is what gives us the issue. I've only lost 1 match. It was another mono black deck. I've only lost 1 match out of like 12 with this thing, and I knew it was coming. I did make a few misplays. I should have kept my Grixis command when I discarded it, And I accidentally discarded my fucking snake when I was the snake that makes people sacrifice shit or it deals damage. But I don't think I was coming back from that anyways. But yeah, so we've got a cut down. You know, it's not the most useful removal in this format. It really isn't. But it also it's kind of nice because it's a card we can usually discard and say I don't give a fuck, especially late in the game. So then we go to Bitter Triumph. It's great because we have the extra life. We can afford to lose it. We have a few lifelink creatures. We can afford to, we can get it back. But yeah, destroy a creature with Planeswalker instant speed. That's awesome. Same thing with Feed the Cycle. This is technically 3-mana removal to us. But I guess if we're really hard up, foraging ain't that bad. That's pretty easy late in the game. Fell, it's instant speed. I mean, it's sorcery speed, which sucks, but destroys any creature for 2 mana. No, no catches. Like go for the throat, instant, but it's non-artifact creature. Nowhere to Run is great for this deck because we don't like hexproof. No one likes hexproof and ward when you're wanting to destroy target creatures to destroy them. Shield Rod's Edict, I only put it in here as another way to deal with Planeswalkers that we don't see that often. So I feel like if there was a removal to cut out of this deck, this would be the removal. It does rarely come in handy though. Like you get a creature like Toby who makes a token and the token is the bigger threat. You just play this, they sacrifice it if there was their only token creature. Withering Torment, peak for a 3-mana removal for this format. Black doesn't have a lot of options for enchantments, so it's nice to have, especially at instant speed. Grixis Command is cool because it is technically our only board wipe in this deck. Like maybe I should take out Shield Rod's Edict and put in another board wipe. But and it's not even a full board wipe because if you're not familiar with this, it has 4 modes. You get to choose 2 of the modes. One of them is put 2/1/1 counters on a creature. It gains lifelink until end of turn. Another one is destroy each creature with power 2 or less, which is great against like a bunch of these wide spreading decks before they get their Crater Hoof Wincon thing activated. Because most people have something like that. You have that Doll enchantment. That's a room. We have Tavar. We have Nessa, the Planeswalker. There's a lot of Crater Hoof X things. There's that cool white creature with flying from Wilds of Eldrani. But yeah, that's great. We can return 2 creature cards from our graveyard to our hand, which comes in handy sometimes. We don't have a lot of creatures. I don't have a lot of creatures in this deck. And then each opponent sacrifices a creature with the highest power among creatures they control, which is pretty potent, especially when it's combined with the destroy each creature with power 2 or less. We could just really take away their whole field, if not all, almost their whole field, if not all of it. Virtue of Persistence is another good removal spell because if we get on a long stretch in the game, we end up drawing 7 lands. Great, we can choose a creature from anyone's graveyard and just put it on the battlefield. That's awesome because we can't have long grinded games. And I'm not gonna lie, that mono black deck, I probably only lost it because they had this. This is a great game changer for black decks. It really is. So then I have a little bit of card advantage, the kind of stuff you'd expect to see in this deck. We have Gix, we have Phyrexian Arena, and we have Unholy Annex. There are a few demons in this deck, and the Ritual Chamber lets you get a demon. So that will actually help us too. That can almost be like a grind down win con. Like if you have Unholy Annex or Bandit's Talent in play, Liliana can really help Bandit's Talent shine. But also, just the fact that they're losing life every time we draw a card, Unholy Annex synergizes very well with another creature we have in here, Shieldred. But yeah, and a lot of people, if you play Brawl, a standard Brawl, you've probably seen Gix as a commander a lot. Or, you've just seen any black deck use them. Because all you got to do is pay 1 life and you draw a card. Perfect. Anytime I deal damage. Awesome. And keeping the field cleared so you can deal damage usually isn't that hard, actually. So then for my 1-drop creatures, because we don't have a lot of 1-drop removal, I wanted them all to have Death Touch or a way to access Death Touch. Ashnod, the Flesh Mechanist, they're pretty cool because they're a 1/1 with Death Touch earlier on in the game, but their other abilities, exile a creature card from your graveyard, create a 3/3 colorless zombie artifact creature token. That's pretty nice for us because this black deck doesn't have a lot of recursion. I don't really have any recursion outside of Gix's Command and Virtue of Persistence. So we can afford to exile the creatures from our graveyard if we want to make those little 3/3 colorless zombie artifact creature tokens. Evolve Sleeper, this guy's just a tempo creature. They can beef themselves up if we need them to. And at the end of the day, they can even draw us cards if we get that much extra mana. And they also give themselves Death Touch after you invest 3 extra mana in them. But then you have a 3/3 creature with Death Touch, which is nice. Tiny Bones, Death Touch, but they also serve a purpose as well because we get to steal cards from their graveyard if we deal damage. Lord Skitter, I just thought he was a good creature because him and Preacher of the Schism, they actually make us more tokens as we progress down the game. And, Tinny Bones and Lord Skitter, it's nice to have some in exile things from people's graveyard that really isn't like, just there only to exile things from people's graveyards. So we do have a little bit of the hate towards recursion decks, but not a lot invested in there. We gotta have a little bit of hate spread around for everybody, right? This guy's just pretty cool because this is just unbiased recursion. Really, anytime we commit a crime, which we have a lot of crimes, we can commit a crime for free with Liliana if we have her in play. And because of that, we can cast a black card from our graveyard, exile a black card from our graveyard, and copy it. We may cast a copy, but we lose 2 life, which really isn't that bad, especially for some of the cards we have. If they have lifelink, or if they just punish the opponent more than us losing 2 life, that is totally worth it. And of course, Phyrexian Fleshgorger, very flexible creature because we can play them at 7, or we can play them at 3, Menace, Lifelink, and a pretty dope ward ability. Because it's not just mana. Now, yes, anyone can afford to pay life, but at the end of the day, them paying 3 life helps us out a lot. Vadmir Newblood, they just synergize with all the crimes we commit, and eventually they themselves will get Menace and Lifelink, and be just as threatening on the field as Phyrexian Fleshgorger. Unstoppable Slasher, now we're getting into some actual win cons. You see, this deck isn't just made to make people concede, because sometimes they don't, and they push through. And what are you going to do? Because basically, almost everything up until now, our win con was them scooping. So now we have Unstoppable Slasher. We can cut their life total in half if we deal damage. And this guy has a built-in recursion kit, because if they die, if it had no counters on it, return it to the battlefield tapped, under your control, with 2 stun counters on it. Great. Shieldred, we've ground them down. We're sitting there waiting. We can let her fucking whittle them down in several to a dozen turns. Bloodletter of Alkazatz. Why do we have Slasher in here without this guy? And along with some other cards. Phyrexian Obliterator, this is just great also because we're wearing down their resources. Why not get a Basher they don't want to block, or someone we can use to deter attackers? And, Rottenmouth Viper, a similar concept. We're just creating something to make them sacrifice or punish them if they don't. Because they'll get a blight counter on them every turn, and when they enter, and then their opponent has to, whenever they attack or enter, they get the blight counter, and the opponent has to either sacrifice something, discard a card, or they pay for life. And that builds up a lot very quickly. And I don't know if you noticed this, if you've ever seen this guy dropped or know the hype about them, you can drop these guys very early in the game in Standard and other constructed formats, because as an additional cost to cast this spell, you may sacrifice any number of non-land permanents. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each permanent sack this way. And we have a few enchantments that just chill around, and, we can't afford to sacrifice them. We've got Hopeless Nightmare. Nowhere to run. Now, that does have a great static effect, but we can afford to sack it if we need to. I really, dude, if we've drawn enough cards, why not sack Phyrexian Arena? Especially if we haven't drawn Shieldred by then. Yeah, we don't want it to kill us. But yeah, then to go more with the cutting in half theme, because, once again, we're based off those terrible mono black decks we see in Standard that are so fun to run. Rush of Dread, it's a spree card. The spree we wanted was target opponent loses half their life rounded up. But all the sprees are pretty awesome. For 4 mana, target opponent sacrifices half the creatures they control rounded up. I'll take half a board wipe for 4 mana. We're mono black and Standard. If I had this as a historic deck, I'd have access to some good board wipes. I don't really feel like I have access to a lot of good. Like, there are some good ones, don't get me wrong. The Invasion for 6 mana is nice. Destroy all creatures, or all non-legendary creatures, or all creatures. Dope. Grievous Wound. Enchanted player can't gain life, which is awesome for us. Especially against bats. And I know it's 5 mana, so they have gained a lot of life if this is the case. But whenever enchanted player is dealt damage, they lose half their life rounded up. So we just double down on the Unstoppable Slasher wherever I tuck that motherfucker away at. And then the last punishment card is Painful Quandary. Now, I don't know if you've ever had someone drop this on you in Brawl, but oh my god. I don't think I've drawn it yet. I have not drawn this when I've been using this deck, but it is such a terrible card to deal with. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player loses 5 life unless they discard a card. It is very painful to deal with. Now, because we have all these heavy cost black things in here, once again, I did not throw in Demolition Field. But we have Blast Zone because I felt low on board wipes. I wouldn't mind having one. There have been a few times where I've loaded it up and I haven't had to use it, but I've been ready to use it. So it is nice to have around. Plaza of Heroes. We have a few legendary creatures, so it's worth protecting. It's worth having. Dross Pits is just card advantage. Same thing with Hidden Necropolis. This will let us discover 4 for 5 mana, 6 mana counting the land we have to sacrifice, which is Hidden Necropolis. And the Dross Pits is one of those pay 2 mana, tap and sack this land, draw a card lands. So those are nice to have. But yeah, outside of that, you know, we're just as heavy as my Toby mono white deck on the basic lands, which is nice though because it's consistent. We don't have to sit there with a fucking Phyrexian Obliterator on our hand and worry, oh god, how long is it going to take us? We'll most likely get the swamp if we don't have the 4th swamp by then. Now, I only have 22 lands in here, which may kind of be hurting me. It's hard for me to adjust to the mana curve. These mana curves with this hand smoother and this land smoother, oh my god, I do not like it. I feel like it's not as aggressive in Brawl and unranked formats though, so that's fun. But, you know, usually I still don't have a lot of problems with lands. Very rarely will I sit there on turn 3 and not have drawn that 3rd land if I had 2 in my opening hand. So yeah, you know, altogether it runs very well. Like I said, I've done like 12 matches. I've been beat once by another mono deck black deck, and I probably did have the chance to win it. I just fucked up. I discarded Grix's command because I thought I was pulling ahead, but they were the ones pulling ahead. I misread the battlefield. And that match is one that we have played during this deck tech. You didn't get to see the end because obviously there was no victory for me. We don't want to show that off, people. Come on, that's embarrassing. Thank you for watching today's deck tech video. I hope you enjoyed the content. Please give us a like, subscribe to the channel for more awesome content. We do both standard best of 1, occasionally best of 3, and standard Brawl videos here at Slay the Brother. And you know, I do drafts sometimes when I'm streaming. When I'm streaming, I like to do more different formats. But when it comes to our content videos, we definitely are almost exclusively, standard related for the time being. But I think standard Brawl is really, really fun, and it's kind of nice to have this rotating format. It's like, honestly, if we had 30 health, this format would be peak. It would be perfect. And I really would like to see a paper version of it. We love hearing your feedback, and we really do enjoy hearing about what kind of decks you guys are working on, too, because that sometimes gives us ideas, not going to lie, man. But either way, I hope this deck tech video was insightful to you, whether you just want to copy and paste it, make a few tweaks, you're making your own brew, and this is part of your research. I really hope you have fun using something like this in Standard Brawl and ruining everybody's day as you do so. And I hope you have a wonderful day.